And I think we are live. I'm pretty sure. Looks like it. I think so. All right, let's see what we have to talk about tonight. First of all, thank you everyone for joining. It's a Monday night, so honestly, I wasn't expecting a lot of people to join tonight, only because, people have things to do on Monday night. They got, I don't know, baseball, they got wrestling, they got, I don't know, isn't it basketball stuff going on? Not a lot of stuff going on in the weather right now. We do have an interesting shortwave we're keeping an eye on. I'm going to talk about that. And of course, we also have some interesting evolution taking place with the tropical Pacific and the northern Pacific that I want to talk about and touch on. The stratosphere is pretty much a non-issue. So I'm going to dive into some of my things, answer your questions. We'll see how long we go tonight. And then we'll go from there. And then next week, we go back to our regularly scheduled program at Wednesday, 8 p.m. So this week we do Monday, then Wednesday. Then the week after that, we go back to a Monday, and then we go back to a Wednesday. Reason why is that basically I've become a very popular person, and I've been traveling a bit. Sorry. But I don't expect that to be a constant issue. It's just that, things are moving forward, right? And a lot of good positive things, and a lot of them are due to you guys. So again, as always, I want to thank you for always coming here and supporting and being a member and whatnot. Yes, we do have the Godzillas are coming back along with the books. We're working on it. We still got a couple things we're going to be hanging up, but as you can see, we have the Godzillas coming back a little bit different than the previous office. I'm looking for the large Godzilla, the one that does radioactive breath. That'll be coming pretty soon. And of course, they're going to be helping out quite a bit with the board over here, which we'll use in a bit. So let's look at some of the data here and see what we got. Let's see here. Now, this morning, I woke up to a surprise with the model guidance, and it was really amplifying the chance for rainfall over the region. And I was a bit suspicious, but I did like the idea of southern New Jersey and southeastern Pennsylvania. So my wording was more of scattered showers, and then we'll adjust from there, as opposed to the previous forecast on Sunday night, which was basically dry. The reason why we saw this change is because there was more amplification, more convective development showing up in the model guidance. Now, this evening, here's our rainfall for tomorrow. And yeah, there's some development. And this shortwave is, a little bit stronger, certainly. When we take a look at the latest, one second. There it is. Latest water vapor. You can see that this shortwave is a little bit more robust. It has a little bit more oomph to it, okay? But the precipitable water values are not all that impressive. The lifting parameters, when we take a look at the SPC lifting parameters, let's take a look at Phronogenesis here. Not anything to really write home about. 925 millibars, 850 millibars, a little bit more organization, slightly more. I think this area right here is what will slide towards the Philadelphia metro and southern New Jersey. So the way I see this, and the way that the model guidance is kind of moving towards, and the way I adjusted the forecast I put out for this evening, was that if you are around Philadelphia on southward and southern New Jersey, we're talking about southwestern New Jersey, Wildwood, Atlantic City, Cape May, New Jersey, that's where you have the best potential for some steadier showers with this lifting that's associated right here. It looks like that's going to slide right into the region. To the north of there, isolated widely scattered showers and variable cloud cover. Not really a big rainfall event in any way, shape, or form. Really never was. There was a chance of maybe a half an inch of rain down towards Cape May, New Jersey for this, but even that has pretty much faded away. And the reason why is that the precipitable water values are still suppressed. In the previous guidance, this was getting pushed up towards south central New Jersey by now, but in reality, that's just not happening. So we made some adjustments, and again, the majority of the focus is down here for the rainfall. And that is what's showing up here on the HRR guidance. You see this rotating right through. And then let's take a look at the NAM guidance. See, at this point, this is when you can use the HRR and the NAM guidance. These are mesoscale models that can pick up convective signals and are really good at picking up these type of systems because it's a mesoscale beta / synoptics type of question, forecast question. So you could use these type of models, especially the NAM really comes into its own here. And so you could see drops that precipitation down. There's your best potential for your steadier rainfall down here. And when you're using this, by the way, always take into account, and I looked at this on the BuffKit data here. Let's see if I can pull this in a little bit. I'll zoom out real fast here. Okay, so I was using BuffKit data here, and there's a lot of dry air setting up over southern New Jersey, around 780 millibars or so. So basically between 750 and 850 millibars is a lot of dry air. And so with that, that's going to kind of eat away at the precipitation potential with this system. And so you're seeing that pretty nicely here with the NAM. And then finally, we'll take a look at the European enhanced high res, I guess you call it. They always change the name of it every 5 seconds. And you can see kind of the same theme here. So I would say if you're looking for steady rainfall, look down towards southern New Jersey and extreme southeastern Pennsylvania. Not really a significant event, but we'll see how it plays out. Now, beyond that, after this pattern, after this shortwave goes through, really it gets pretty quiet. Let's see here for some reason. Oh, there it is. So the reason why is we have this confluent flow here, and you can see it here in the upper level winds here. This trough shifts towards the Canadian Maritimes, this ridge remains strong, and we are in a persistent northwesterly flow. And so when you're in this type of persistent northwesterly flow, you get a lot of convergence and confluence setting in. And convergence and confluence sets up sinking air, which leads to warming conditions. So by the weekend, we're looking at near summer-like temperatures, very comfortable, and yeah, it looks like it's going to be dry next weekend. We do have a strong shortwave coming in, but it looks like that's going to be from Monday. I think this is a bit overdone on the European guidance. The ensembles is a little bit weaker. The GFS is also a little bit weaker. Now, the pattern that we're in, because of the MJO state, it does fall into this type of theme of being a robust system, right? A robust shortwave in the polar jet stream. It just seems like it's a little bit too much, you know. The way that it cuts off here, it goes from a positively tilted trough to a neutral trough, closes off into an upper level low, has a ton of forcing. It just looks a little bit too robust to me. So this might be a case of some feedback, some convective feedback here. So we got some time to watch this, but certainly next Monday, looks like a rather wet day for the region if this actually plays out. All the model guys agree that there's going to be some sort of low pressure system and some sort of short wave diving down. I just think the European might be a little bit too robust. By the way, what do you think of my mug? Nice, right? You can buy it at the website. Pretty cool, right? Okay, so we have this shortwave coming through. So why do we have this robust pattern in place? And why are we seeing, when we take a look at the long range pattern, we'll pull that up real fast, this evolution of a persistent trough around the Canadian Maritimes, an active weather pattern continuing with a ridge over the west and a trough around the Gulf of Alaska to the Aleutians. All of this is being driven by what's going on in the Pacific. Now, there's a lot of changing factors here. There's a lot of debate as to whether or not the PDO remains negative. We did have some warming taking place, some cooling out here in the Central Pacific. Could be a signal that we're about to flip over to a positive PDO rather than a negative PDO. For those of you who don't know, a positive PDO is basically all this is warm water, which would make sense in an El Nino state, okay? Because you'd have warm water going down the west coast, you have warm water here. It's typically what happens, right? But every so often you have cold water lingering here, and when you have that happening, what happens is that your ridge tends to get stuck over the western polar jet stream. It enhances the trough over the eastern United States, and this sends all sorts of havoc over the region. So we're going to be keeping an eye on that to see how this evolves. What we do know is that El Nino is definitely developing. What we don't know is how fast. There's a lot of guessing that it could be taking hold by June. And the reason why is based off of what's happening with the SOI. The SOI is basically our atmospheric warning signal, okay? And right now the SOI is essentially neutral, okay? Now when the SOI goes negative in the monthly and seasonal values, that's an El Nino signal. When it goes positive, like it was for the past 3 years, that's a La Nina signal, okay? So what we want to see with a developing El Nino is this going negative. Now, how negative it gets is very important. You see, if we are negative between -5 and -10, that's essentially a weak El Nino. If we get to -10 to -20, that's essentially a moderate El Nino. If we get below -20, that is a strong El Nino. And each factor provides different results in terms of the weather pattern, not only for the summer, but also for the fall and winter. So we're going to be keeping an eye on that very carefully. A lot of model guides is suggesting that we're going to be in that moderate range. So we'll see how that plays out. Orientation is still pretty much a mixed signal at this point. So not even going to hazard that. But the reason why we think, or at least a lot of people are saying that, hey, looks like it's going to take hold in June, and we're seeing model guidance stating that, is because the MJO is expected to go into phase 7. And if you look at the long range guidance, especially the CFS, phase 7, 8, and neutral, what's happening here is that the model guidance is saying that as the MJO goes into phase 7 and 8, the SOI tanks. As the SOI tanks, it sets up the circulation for El Nino. With El Nino circulation basically jump start, this is basically like jump starting a battery here. Once that gets jump started, then El Nino takes over, and this goes into a neutral state. The MJO, whenever you have an El Nino or La Nina, essentially becomes nothing more than a bellwether of themes rather than actual forcing parameters. So it becomes less important. So it's not a surprise that it goes tanking right into a neutral state. What's interesting to me is this indication of this spike here around the middle to end of May. Why is that interesting to me? Well, when you have that little spike here, it's showing up here on the CFS, the European, your regular European, some of the GFS solutions. When you get that spike, what typically happens is you get a huge spike of convection right around the date line. And you're already starting to see that indication here. And when you start to set that up, then you start to support storms 7 to 10 days out. Remember, there's usually a bit of a lag here. So we could be looking at a pretty good heavy rainfall event by the end of the month. I'm not talking about the one for next Monday. That one still is a bit questionable, and it's overall in a progressive pattern, so it's not going to linger. But towards the end of the month, I would not be surprised if we're dealing with another heavy rainfall event. Hint, if you have a basement, time to make sure your water sealer's done. I know I'm going to be doing that, I'll tell you that much. Because I think we're going to be dealing with another heavy rainfall event for the end of the month based on some of this data I'm seeing here. We're seeing that spike potential, you see the convection firing, you're seeing the polar jet stream amplified. We still have plenty of polar air masses to work with, of course not as strong, and you have a very amplified subtropical jet stream. All the little pieces are there. Whether or not we get a nice big cake, well, we'll see whether or not we can mix the batter up just right or not. but all the ingredients appear to be showing up. As far as El Nino for the summer, here are my general thoughts. If we get a moderate El Nino or a strong El Nino, which I think we will, I think we'll more likely have more humid summer type conditions than hot and humid. What I mean by that is that, that we'll have our weeks where we're in the upper 80s and it feels like a sauna out, okay? And we'll have our occasional 90, 95 spike. But I don't see us having sustained heat, like 95 plus for 7 days straight, something like that, right? Your heat wave, 3-4 days of hot and humid temperatures above 90 degrees. I envision this summer more to be like overnight lows in the mid to upper 70s. It just feels balmy and muggy and just kind of out, right? Like you just can't get cool. You take a shower and you're still sweating. It's just unless you have central air or something. It's just a mess, right? And then when you walk outside, you just kind of walk into a wall of humidity. And you're going to be seeing a lot of cold fronts, some polar air masses giving us some relief, but those cold fronts are most likely going to be stalling along the East Coast, and it's going to be a very active pattern, unsettled pattern. Hint, enjoy your nice weekends when you get them. Seriously. Maximize them to the best of your ability. You're going to need to. Hurricane season likely will be quiet compared to the other couple of years, but we still have to keep an eye out. Like I say, it only takes one, and this pattern is such that if you get an upper level low right around the Tennessee River Valley, right around here, and you get a nice little tropical system just chugging its way across, getting through the shear, it could cause some problems for the mid-Atlantic. So that's another thing we're going to have to keep an eye on. Not a lot of threats, but like I said, it only takes one to make it memorable. So we'll be keeping an eye on that. But overall, I think the tropical season with this El Nino is going to be relatively quiet. But I think we're going to have a lot of severe threats, a lot of rain threats, a very active weather pattern. That's what I'm seeing right now. And notice I'm not bringing up any models or anything. Why? All I got to do is look at the convection. I don't need models. I don't need the NHC, NFDWZ, all these other models that they keep on coming out, and AI learning, okay? This is simple physics here. When you see this convection here firing up, that's a warning sign. And it tells you, be prepared. So that's what I'm seeing in the weather pattern right now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to answer your questions. We'll talk about what's going on in baseball. It's pretty quiet out here in YouTube land, so we'll first, of course, start with the premium questions. How does it look for next weekend, Friday the 19th through Sunday the 21st, down by AC, and for the Park Drive, and any preliminary ideas for Saturday the 20th in Delmarva, specifically near Baltimore for the Preakness Stakes? Preakness, that's like horse racing, right? I don't know. Let's see here. Well, let's just dive in and look at the preliminaries here for next weekend. Let's pull up. Okay. So, if I'm looking at the 500 millibar pattern for next weekend, which I am, what I see is a lot of rising heights. This looks like a quiet weekend right now. Temperatures are a bit questionable, probably somewhere in the 70s, possibly pushing in the 80s if we get that ridge. If this ridge axis right here pops and shifts towards the Great Lakes, then I think we definitely have a good chance of seeing a really nice weekend next weekend. And by the way, just so I remember, I want to say this, make sure I remember this. Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there watching. Okay, and happy Mother's Day to my mom, because I don't want to miss that. Looks like next weekend is also looking pretty good too. But it looks like we'll have a nice little break in between this trough here. We might have to watch out for a backdoor cold front. We'll see. We were planning to go to Bensell, PA tomorrow, probably right on the fringe of the Expected steady precipitation. Yeah, you're going to be riding the edge. It's not going to be a washout tomorrow. Even the rainfall that's moving through in southern New Jersey, it's not going to be a washout, I don't think. Um, it just kind of depends on what you plan on doing there, you know? I mean, but I think that for the most part, you know, if you have a nice umbrella, you'll be fine for passing showers or two. Let's see here. Oh, I got a baseball question. Yankees have 16 players on the DL. Better team on the DL than playing right now. Oh man, I've been there with my teams in DLs. Look, the way I see, here's the thing with baseball. Baseball fans need to understand that the season has fundamentally changed. And what I mean by that is that it doesn't matter as much as Major League Baseball likes to make it up like as if it matters. It doesn't matter as much if you're in first place or the wild card. It still doesn't. Because you can go into the wild card round, get incredibly hot after just barely getting in, and getting to the World Series, i.e. the Phillies. I'm sorry, Philly fans. Your team was struggling along for most of the season, and then you had a hot streak. Granted, well-deserved, had a hot streak at the right time, boom, got you all the way to the World Series. That can happen with any team. So my point of view for Yankee fans, Met fans, and Philly fans, just try to stay around 500 for most of the season, and then fire up in August and September and take it. That's it. That's all you need to do. At the end of the day, if you're world champion, it doesn't matter how you got there. It just matters that you get there. Most of them are pitchers, but Stanton and Judge are two non-pitchers. I would say that Stanton doesn't surprise me. The guy's a walking clinic. Judge worries me, man. When you're a power hitter and you have hip issues, that's not something fun to play with. So just putting that out there. Let's see here. YouTube looks good. But yeah, I mean, no, I got no Mets games on tonight, so I don't have to worry about losing. That's good. There we go. I know it's crazy right now. None of my pitchers could stay healthy. Let's see how that shortwave's coming along. Okay. Let's see what we got here. Okay, so this is starting to come together. Again, when you're looking at the radar here, what you want to do before you really jump the gun on this type of rainfall is to see what's going on in the observations. And what we're seeing here is not a lot of cloud cover, but not a lot of reports of rainfall. When you get these two dots here, or more importantly, if you go into here, right, and you take a look at this right here, 10 SM. Can you guys all see that? What that means is 10 standard miles. That's the visibility. If it's precipitating and you could make visibility out to 10 miles, then it's very light rain. Okay? Heavy rain's usually when you get below 2 miles. Okay? So this isn't really all that impressive as far as what's actually being reported on the ground. I'm not seeing anything really that stands out. And by the way, you could also see that here. That's the visibility here. Nothing's really standing out as being moderate to heavy. So thus far, this has more bark than bite. Okay, so and let's go out to Indiana and let's see what those observations look like. Because notice pretty strong convection here. Observations. We have some sort of precipitation about 7 miles, 8 miles. This is light to moderate rainfall here. So what this is telling me when I'm looking at the visibility here and the rainfall rates is that this is showing up more bark than bite. Not really all that impressive. So if you have plans for out towards southeastern Pennsylvania, I wouldn't cancel them. You know, go out there, have some fun, have a small umbrella with you, and use that. And you should be fine. This is great coffee. What coffee is this again?
It's just breakfast blend, Maxwell House.
Breakfast blend. I can't talk today. breakfast blend Maxwell House. Good stuff. Good stuff. It kind of reminds me when I was a kid. I think my mom used to make this. Probably. I know we always had Maxwell House.
Same.
I wanted to get the Colombian coffee just because I thought the donkey was cool.
You want to get what?
Which one? The one with the donkey?
Oh my god.
Yeah. I just liked the donkey. I didn't care about the coffee. I just thought the donkey looked cool. Let's see here. This is interesting. This maritime air mass trying to build in. See if there's any changes in air mass. Not really. Very weak cold front. Very weak. This is not like a major event or anything. Let's see here. More baseball chat. Hey, I'm all up to talking about baseball every once in a while. Sometimes we don't always talk about the weather. Sometimes we could talk about baseball. That's okay. How good are the Rays? Okay, Rays are very hot. I want to see them. Let's see what they do in June. But they're very impressive. Very impressive. I think they're going to be tough to catch. Drought map looking good. Looking good out west. Midwest, on the other hand, looks rough. Agreed. The problem this time of year when it comes to drought in the plains in the Midwest is everything is driven by convection. Death Wish Coffee now has vanilla coffee. I heard about that. We got to get through all of our coffee. We got way too much coffee here. Because we also have like the beans in the ground. We have to get through all that because one of the premium members sent us like really premium coffee, and it's very, very strong. Like I drink this stuff, I'm gonna be up for like 3 days straight. So I gotta be very picky on when to use that, but I definitely have to check that out. By the way, I did also get some new books. Let's see here. I got The Weather Machine by Andrew Bloom. This is a good discussion, a good read on generally how the weather models have been produced and the politics involved in it, which is always interesting. Unsettled. This is a book about climate science, about the different theories in climate science by the former undersecretary from the Obama administration. It's always good to get different points of view. Don't ever get yourself locked into one point of view, because regardless if it's for your political party or whatever tribe you want to do, you always want to listen to different points of view, because one or two things are going to happen. One, your point of view is strengthened by a question on YouTube.
No, I just want to, when you hold up the books so that like you can see them.
Yep, this
when
one.
you're talking about them.
This one. Okay, so this one, right? So this guy is definitely of a different political persuasion than I would be, right? But I make sure I read these types of books. Why? One or two things is going to happen. One, you learn something new that you didn't really consider, and then you maybe adjust your points of view on things. Or two, you strengthen what you believe, and you have a stronger argument for when people disagree with you. See, if all you do is read books and read topics and read people from people who agree with you on everything, the only thing you do is just get a yes man. I mean, and every business in the world crashes and burns because of yes men. So don't ever trap yourself into that. Always challenge yourself to think beyond your comfort zones, so to speak. And then let's see here. The primacy of doubt. This is a good one. This is not only about climate science, but also about quantum physics. That's fun. Yeah. So this one right here, quantum physics. If you're interested in quantum physics, you definitely want to read this book, The Primacy of Doubt by Tim Palmer. Definitely check that out. So, and of course we have a brand new dynamic meteorology book that a lot of the graduating meteorologists are using that I just got. I haven't started reading it yet, but I'm going to. And the reason why I want to read it is that I want to understand what our young meteorologists are learning. So it has a lot of great presentations. Here you got your heat content charts. So this one you can get right on Amazon, actually, by Sam Miller. And the reason why you want to, as a meteorologist, as you're an age like wine, meteorologist, you always want to get the latest books so that way you know what the younger generations are learning and also learning the latest theories and topics and ways of doing mathematical work. So I got that. And then I got my Godzillas holding them all up. So there you go. So I'll let you know of new books that I get. Do you like how the Chiefs did in the draft? I thought the Cowboys got some talent with high ceiling. I definitely like the Chiefs draft, and I'll tell you why. They don't need to draft all-star players. All they need to do is draft the complementary players and a good offensive and defensive line. Championships are built on good offensive and defensive lines. I don't care what anyone says. So certainly interesting. Just saw that Ray Liotta died of pulmonary edema and acute heart failure caused by something. Everyone make sure you get your regular echocardiograms. Oh God, this is why I wasn't a doctor. I could never say anything. Is that something from Ghostbusters?
It's ecto.
Oh. And have them checked for buildup in arteries. It can get you without even realizing it. This is true. This is why I always go to the doctors and annoy them with crazy questions. Let's see here. Let's see what we got in YouTube land. Anything interesting? Nope, pretty quiet there. Yeah, you always gotta be, be aware of your health and stuff, and try to eat healthy. Enjoy life. I cannot be that type of person like, oh my God, you had cake, you have to run 4 miles. If you can't have cake, then there's no point of living.
Or you're just irritable all the time. You deny yourself constantly.
I like chocolate cake. If you can't have chocolate cake every once in a while, then you're missing out. I like cake. Give me chocolate cake. You guys remember that? I know it's Cosby. I know. But still, that was a great bit. And it's very true, too. Every father knows it. I'll just give him chocolate cake. And then the mother walks in angry. That was a great bit. And because it was true. My sister's a nurse, so I've heard most of these words before. Otherwise, I could never pronounce any of these. Yeah, I can't look. See, here's the thing, right? I am a master at butchering the English language. George Bush has nothing on me.
And you've attempted to butcher a few others as well.
Yes, and I've destroyed Spanish. I made my Spanish and my English teacher retire early. That's how bad I am. Okay, so I don't even try. I'm just going to start making my own language. It just is better. That way, if I make a mistake, I'll just go with the flow. It's not good. The only language I really know is calculus, and that's scary, which I do consider to be a language. Trust me, you get through that nonsense, it's definitely a language. Okay, so we talked about baseball, we talked about football, we talked about weather, talking about everything. We're not trying to talk about politics.
Why not?
Why not?
Talk about books.
Why not talk about politics?
No. All the other topics.
Yeah, we're not going to talk politics.
No. That's not what I meant. You know that.
Yes. I should be president. All I could say is, as president, I want all the peanut butter cups. That's what I'm going to run on. All the chocolate peanut butter. I think that's fair. I don't ask for taxes. I'm just going to ask for payment in peanut butter chocolate.
Yeah, fine.
I think that'll work. I think I'd win on that. Yeah. The library's starting to grow, though, so that's certainly good.
Be growing some more.
Yeah, we got more books underway. I'm going to be reaching out to the AMS. When is your summer forecast being released? Great question, Paul. The summer forecast is currently being worked on. I am shooting for, what is the date anyway? Because I got the notes for it, because I'm working on the summer and also the hurricane forecast at the same time. But I don't know what date it is anymore, because moving in, it just becomes like a freaking tunnel vision. So I'm probably going to release it on next week on the 15th and 16th. The 15th, I'll do the summer forecast, and then the the tropical season forecast. So that's going to be the 15th and 16th, because then I'll have them both out so we could talk about them on the 17th, which will be our next live chat, right? So I think that would work out pretty good. So that should answer your question, Paul, because what I want to do is I want to be able to have a chat about them. So yeah, I'm going to shoot for the 15th and the 16th, right around there. I might do them both on the same day or do one-on-one. We'll see. Sure, you are the one who calls all the Deadites by saying the words wrong when picking up the neck. No. Let me put it this way. I don't touch any of those things. My wife one time was looking at one of those, what is it called? Ouija board, whatever, that thing. I don't allow that stuff in my house.
No, we don't have
That stuff is every horror, like you would think every horror movie starts off with those stupid damn.
I've seen a lot of horror movies.
I do not have that thing anywhere. I'm not like, like a spooky person, all that stuff, but I have something of just a bad feeling about any of that stuff. And I love Halloween. You can just wait till you see Halloween around here. It's going to be freaking crazy. We're going to have skeletons. We're going to have everything, right? And it's going to be like a light show and everything. It's going to be great. But there will be no Ouija boards or any funky books. No. Nope. I don't trust that stuff. Because you know what? I always say, I always believe in physics. I always believe for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction. And I think that's true on all facets of all planes, because that is the way that the universe works. So I strongly believe in those type of force parameters. I was awful at calculus. I had to take all 3 levels to pain. Calculus, see here. I did great in Calculus 1, struggled in Calculus 2. Calculus 3, for some reason, was just easy. And then Calculus 4 or multivariable calculus, depending on which one you want to use, that one was just like, oh, I get it all. Like, it just clicked. The first week was difficult. I remember that. I'm like, oh, God, this is going to be just like Calculus 2. And then after that first week, everything just clicked. And I think it was because at the same time I was taking dynamic meteorology, advanced physics, and advanced chemistry all at the same time. And they all had the same type of equations. And so everything from a physical point of view in my mind just kind of clicked. And instead of seeing numbers and laws and mathematical rules, what I just saw was actually physics in motion. And so it didn't bother me anymore. Like the equations just kind of flowed. Was a computer science major. Those are tough. Any hints on the summer of where we could what we could expect around here? Well, we actually just talked about that. Definitely a strong influence from El Nino. Definitely a humid and active summer. I'll put it that way. You want to reinforce your basement for like water sealer and stuff. I'll put it that way. Okay. I think it's going to be one of those summers. It's going to be a very convective-driven summer too. You know, where like some locations struggle to get rain, and other locations are like, no more rain, please. We already have like 15 inches. Thank you very much. So it's definitely going to be like one of those type of summers. I'm surprised. YouTube is unusually quiet. You know why? Because the usual jokers aren't around.
I guess.
You know? The usual, not jokers, I mean that affectionately. But I always am looking for, when are we going to get a tornado?
The vocal regulars.
Yes. Vocal regulars. Vocal. Yeah, that works. But I will say this summer is going to be very, it's going to keep me on my toes. So, oh, and some other news too. I've got the notes already in place. I'm talking to Marie about it already. Writing a book about forecasting. And I don't mean like, this is how I forecast or this is how I blah, blah, blah. What I figured is that every time I meet young meteorologists coming out, or when I have my interns, right, they always say, no one taught us how to do this. And I remember being in college where no one taught me how to actually, they taught me the rules, they taught me the laws, They taught me the mathematical equations. They taught me how to lose my hair faster and all that other stuff, but they didn't teach me how to forecast. So I thought, why don't I write a book about it and explain how to do it? So that's probably a year or two out, but I'm actually working on that and creating notes on not just how I forecast, but like what websites I'll look at, how to do things, what does each parameter mean, how to avoid model paralysis, stuff like that. Model paralysis is when, and some of you guys probably recognize this, is when you start looking at every single model. Guys, you don't need to look at the UK Met. And you don't have to look at the Jamaican model, the Brazilian model, the Aloysius, God, look, they gave me the most snow model. You don't need to do that. If you understand the basic laws of physics and you understand the basic laws of thermodynamics, you can knock it down to 2 synoptic models, 2 mesoscale models, and 2, I guess you call it micro models. Like I'd say like high res, really like short term, 6-hour type models that you could use for like severe thunderstorms and stuff like that. But that's where I'm going to head towards, and I think it's going to be really popular, and I think that I'm going to bring out like a different, unique viewpoint. So we'll see how that goes. Let's see here. We got some good questions. Probably because it's Monday. Yep, it's Monday. Yeah, I know it's unusual. I agree. Saw the 850 millibar and lower levels were really warmed up, as is typical for this time of year, but the 500 to 250 millibar are very cold, big temperature differences. Let's see here. You know what? Here. There we go. This shows up pretty nicely. Okay, so what's happening here? Well, lots of ozone. Why do I mention lots of ozone? Well, not just because I like saying ozone, but also because this ozone's getting destroyed because of the active sun. Now, the active sun allows for the destruction of the ozone, which cools the lower stratosphere and upper troposphere. So what you end up with is a very cold upper troposphere, which leads to more instability. More instability means more dynamic thunderstorms. So whenever I start seeing an active sun, I start seeing the better potential for convection. How does this all play together? Remember what I mentioned about the convection around the date line? All right, where is that? That's somewhere around here. Let's see here. This one right here. Here. Remember I was mentioning all that? Well, if we have a relatively chilly lower stratosphere and upper troposphere, that means your parcel in the atmosphere is rising faster. That means your convection can become more intense. It also means that you have a lot higher potential for a lot of convective feedback error in your model guidance. So just beware of that. Any changes to our hurricane forecast cone this year? I know it gets updated every once in a while. I know there's a lot of debate about that. I think that the National Hurricane Center might go with more of a clear type version. And they're going to be taking away the solid line and doing more dashed. What they're trying to do is start trying to get people away from the idea of the center of the storm to recognize that these storms are large, and it's just not just the eye, but it's the entire storm itself. But when we get more concrete changes, I'll let you know. Given the recent heavy rain, do you see flash flooding, both of urban areas and stream floods being an issue this summer? Yes. Short and sweet, yes. We already saw it with the spring storm and didn't take a lot. So, yeah. Why are there so many models to begin with? I feel like it makes forecasting extremely difficult because people like to put their name on things, organizations. Really, you just need a few. Honestly, you do. European GFS. If you want, you could throw in the Canadian. It's kind of like a tiebreaker. your ensemble guidance for your long range, your NAM and HRR, maybe your RAP for the extreme short range. That's it. That's all you need. Then you're done. That's it. You don't need the UK Met. You don't need all these other model guidance. It's useless. Then there's other models you can use that are different varieties, like are made specifically for wave heights and stuff like that. That's different. That you can use. But yeah, I mean, it's a matter of just learning how to separate all the model guidance. Sebastian Volholic, I think I said it right. All right, so tropical Atlantic seems to be really warm currently. All right, let's pull it up. Let's pull up the data. There we go. Yes, it is warm. How will this impact the Atlantic hurricane season going forward, especially with El Nino developing? Well, that's an interesting question. So first we know the basis here, that the warm sea surface temperatures would support plenty of fuel for a system to develop. So this tells me I got plenty of fuel. Okay. Let's see if I can pull up some other data here. I am going to pull up some observations. Let's see here. Radar satellite. Now, what I'm going to be watching for, and it's a little bit too early right now because we're just not in the season, but there's an awful lot of dry air out here. Awful lot of dry air. And let's see if we could put in the movie of this. Okay, so when I have all this dry air out in the Atlantic, it basically is like diamond dust. Okay, it kills off any type of tropical development that could possibly develop. Now, granted, in this satellite picture, the intertropical convergence zone is way too far south, as it normally is this time of year. And you can't really base any forecasts on the observations as it is right now. But what I'm trying to say is that if you have this amount of dry air in place in the middle of the tropical season, you're not going to get any type of tropical development regardless of those warm sea surface temperatures. So what I would say the warm sea surface temperatures would suggest is that you have plenty of gasoline in the tank, but the engine, the core of the engine might have a hole in it. Okay, the ignition starter might be broken. So you combine that with the shear that's in place over the tropical Atlantic. Look at this wind. Look at that jet streak from the subtropical. You got this thing set up during the middle of the tropical season. You're not going to get anything developed because this is just going to chop off the top of any tropical system like Jason at a camping site. It just wouldn't be pretty. All right. So yeah. So these signals, what I would say is that if you get a tropical system to develop in these hostile environment, then you'd have plenty of fuel for it to feed on if it's able to develop. That's just kind of preliminary what I'm thinking based on what I'm seeing here. It really needs to snow this winter. Well, that's true. Well, all right, look, I'll tell you this.
One season at a time.
That's true. One season at a time. El Ninos typically produce more snowfall in the region. However, I warn you, if we get a strong El Nino, that's not my fault. I'm just saying, strong El Ninos usually are not a good sign. They're just as bad as strong La Ninas. But strong El Ninos typically lead to very robust systems. So maybe you might end up with a winter with one really powerful, haymaker of a storm. Moderate El Ninos, you can get maybe one or two. Weak El Ninos, you can just get like a train of them coming through. And what you get is like these storms coming off the Carolina coast and shooting up towards the benchmark, and you get all sorts of fun. But it's harder to pull off. I'll put it this way: if you have a moderate El Nino, you really need the polar vortex to go negative and just weak and break apart. If you have a weak El Nino, you don't need that so much. If you have a strong El Nino, you better hope for some sort of really funky, unusual evolution of high latitude blocking to set up over North America and screw up everyone else. That's pretty much your best shot. More Miller A's and Nino, more Miller A's and B's. But yeah, you get a lot more. You get a lot more Miller A's coming out of the Gulf of Mexico, shooting right up the coast. But those Miller A's coming out of the Gulf of Mexico, in a strong El Nino, are more likely to cut up towards the Delmarva, towards the Delaware River Valley, and up towards Albany, than towards the Delmarva Peninsula, and then off towards the benchmark. Because what typically happens is that in a strong El Nino, the negative NAO is displaced to the east, so you get this weakness setting up towards the St. Lawrence River Valley. When will we know what kind of El Nino we are going to get for the remainder of this year into winter? Over the next 8 weeks, we'll get a lot more knowledge on the details of this El Nino event. We'll get a lot better idea on the strength, we'll get a lot better idea on the orientation, and we'll also get a better idea on the Northern Pacific. So a lot of changes going on going forward. Thanks for the explanation. No problem, Sebastian. Let's see here. This has gone over really well, by the way, the change up, because I'm able to bounce back and forth really faster. Any indication so far whether the water vapor from the volcano with impact El Nino, any new data on whether the water vapor is persistent or starting to spread and dissipate? The last I saw, it was spreading and dissipating. I haven't seen any indication of any concentration anymore. So it looked like it's getting spread out, and the influence is starting to wane. But that also could be why we're seeing a colder stratospheric influence in the mid latitudes and around the equator still, based on that influence. Well, we got 8 minutes left. We're going to start to wrap it up. So get your questions in, and then we will shut it down for the night, because I am going to pack for my trip. I'm going to fly in a plane. I'm going to try and catch the clouds. When was the last time we had a weak El Nino for a winter which produced a train of storms that could happen like you mentioned? It's a good question. I have to really think about that. Let's just look at the data. I have the data up. Let's roll down and check. Okay, so let's see here. 2018-19, we had a week. We had pretty much a weak El Nino. So 2018-19 was 1 year. 2015-16 is an example of a strong El Nino. And you're at 2.6. That's pretty strong. We haven't had a lot of El Ninos over the past 10 years. We've had a lot of La Ninas. Or we've had neutral. Let's see here. We had an El Nino winter in 2014-15. That was a weak El Nino. Let's see here. That led to a couple of pretty good storms. Strong El Nino in the 2015-16 season. And then the only other El Nino event was 2018-19. That was a weak El Nino. So far, we are at a neutral state, and we'll see just how strong this El Nino gets. But that's pretty much the data we're seeing. Let's see here. 2018-19 wasn't too bad of a winter. Really. I mean, compared to what we've been seeing. It's like gold compared to what we've been seeing. I mean, geez. After that, 2019 to 2020 was just an epic fail. And, really, when you look at the data, it was a marginal. You could almost call it a weak El Nino. It was very, very close. And then 2020, 21 was eh. And, 2021, 22 was eh. And then, we all know about 2022 to 23, don't we? That was just painful. So, we definitely during El Nino events, we'll definitely see a different influence than what we've been seeing over the past couple of years. I think we'll have a better potential of seeing some activity. And I think for tonight, that will be the last question as my voice is starting to go. Thank you again for joining. I know it's Monday night. I really appreciate you guys coming out. I know you have a lot of things you could possibly do, but you've come here to join me, and I really, really appreciate it. So, as always, thank you. I hope everyone has a wonderful week ahead. I will see you next Wednesday at 8 p.m. We'll talk about the summer forecast, the tropical forecast, and everything else that you want to ask. Have a wonderful night, and as always, stay safe out there.